Hello and welcome to a brand new season, brand new episode of At the Elephants. This is my favorite thing, probably up there, that I've ever done in my whole life. This is the only podcast that focuses on the alumni, the faculty, the guests, the all-around friends of the North Carolina School of the Arts, or University of North Carolina School of the Arts for you youngsters out there. This is my first podcast that I ever made. I've made a bunch of them. I've helped other people make them, but it all started here, everybody. This started in 2014. I graduated from drama directing in 2013. And it took me about a year to realize that I miss my friends and I miss talking to them about art, about life, and everything involved. A lot of people, I feel like upon graduation from our school, they head to New York, they head to LA, they head to Chicago, they go where they go, and they find their group of friends from school, and a lot of people stay in touch. They stay really close. They keep making things with their classmates. They make things with everybody. And I didn't really have that experience. I definitely lived with people and lived around people from school, but all of my work and most of my time was spent in the television business, which out of the drama school, unless you're happen to work on a show with another actor or somebody from the drama school, or even, the film school, it's very rare. So I miss my friends and I missed my teachers and I missed everybody. So I started this podcast in a selfish effort to reconnect with all the people that I cared about. Over the last 8 years, I've done this show several times. It falls off, it picks back up. And one of the things that I want to mention before we get into today's episode, because it's a great episode. I had such a wonderful time talking to Joshua Morgan, Drama 2009. One of the things that I want to mention about the way this is being done, you might notice if you're watching this, if you're just listening to it, thanks for listening. It's always been an audio show, but I've made very few video episodes of the show. And now I've finally said, you know what, I'm going to record the video. And there's a few different ideas that have gone into that over the years. I never wanted to do video episodes in the very beginning, even though I felt like I could, because I didn't want to make people feel uncomfortable, especially with actors. You know how they can be, especially if you're one listening to this. The cameras turn on and it changes the vibe a little bit, and they can get a little bit more concerned about how they're being perceived and what they're saying. But when it's just audio and you're just talking into a mic, I felt like I was more likely to get an authentic conversation. On that same note of authenticity, I never wanted to do online interviews. I never wanted to do Skype or now Zoom or FaceTime or any of that kind of stuff because I was worried that the connection wouldn't be there and that I wouldn't be able to really talk to somebody. I love the modern age that we live in and the technology is great. I have a Zoom job now where I produce TV shows from my desk here. It's amazing. I wouldn't change it. I love my job. But it's harder to connect. It's harder to really get face to face. So for years, especially through the pandemic, I was very hesitant to start producing this show over the internet and to do Zoom calls and to get that distance and make it feel close. That seemed difficult. But now after many years of not doing the show, it's been, I think, about 2 or 3 years since I really was doing the show on a regular basis. I said, fuck it. I don't care anymore. I'm going to get what I'm going to get. I miss my friends. I miss meeting strangers. I miss talking to people who I haven't had these experiences with. So I said, you know what? I'm going to get what I'm going to get. And when I can get somebody in person out here in Los Angeles where I live, despite my decorations, I will do that. We already have some episodes that have been recorded for the season that I filmed here in my studio/living room. And I'm excited to bring you those episodes. It's great to get people in person and to really talk. But the truth of the matter is a large majority of the subjects for this show and the interviews that I want to do and the people I want to talk to, they live in New York City, a city that I don't get to visit very often. And especially when, the pandemic started, it seemed like a scary place to go. And now things seem to be well back on track. And I've thought many times about, I'll fly to New York and I'll map out a whole 2 or 3 weeks and just bang out as many interviews in person as I can. But the logistics of that and finding space, it all became an excuse in a way to not get the show back on track, which is really what I feel like the show needed, which is just to get made. So now the show is getting made. Some of these interviews, including the one you're about to watch, were done over Zoom or done over the internet in try to get the best microphone you can. I actually have a mic that I sent to New York City that I've been passing around. It's been to Washington State, or Oregon, as it were, and it's been to New York City, and it's getting passed around so we can at least get some quality audio for everybody. But as far as the video is concerned, I've always wanted to include that. I've always wanted to see people's faces, and I can't imagine doing a show where I record it over Zoom or something like that, or over the phone, and then you listen to it, but I don't get to see the person I'm talking to. I want to see the person I'm talking to. And then, of course, the idea becomes, well, do I do a video call, but then only publish the audio? Why not publish the video? If I recorded the damn video, why not show it to you all? So I bit the bullet. I said, you know what? I'm going to get the in-person interviews when I can. But for now, I'm going to get as many interviews as I can because I want to talk to everybody. If you're brand new to At the Elephants and you've already made it through this lengthy intro, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time. I really suggest, if possible, this is my number one suggestion to anybody who's listening to this show. And it's not just for my show, it's in general. Pay for YouTube Premium. It's the fucking best. It's the only way for you to close your phone while you're watching YouTube and listen to the audio without keeping your phone open. Because those of you who know, you're watching a longer video on YouTube, you just want to listen to it, and you click close on your phone to save some battery, and boom, it all shuts off. I've been paying for YouTube Premium for years. This isn't an ad for it, but in a way, I guess it is. It's well worth it. You got no ads interrupting your stuff to try to sell you Geico insurance while you listen to the show, and you can close your damn phone. Should they paywall it, that feature, and put it behind a paywall? Probably not, but this is the world we live in. You're already paying for all these streaming services anyway. Cut fucking Hulu or whatever you're barely watching, whichever one you watch the least, cut that and get YouTube Premium. Because I promise you, if you watch YouTube videos at all, you'll never go back. You'll never go back from it. It's totally worth it. And YouTube is going to be, at least for now, the only place to get the full video version of At the Elephants. So get that YouTube Premium and get signed up for that. It's the best way to enjoy the show. On to today's episode. Let's talk about our dear friend, Joshua Morgan. In the history of the show, I've talked to all sorts of people. I've talked to everybody from all 5 schools. For those who might be watching or listening that aren't super familiar with the North Carolina School of the Arts, if you found this interview some other way, it is a school in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I'm not going to do this every time. This is the first episode back. But it's a school in North Carolina that's very special in that it is an arts conservatory, but it has really a myriad of different programs on the same campus. And for a conservatory, it's almost completely unheard of, to my knowledge. There is a drama school for actors and directors. There is a film school with every film school major pretty much that you can imagine. There is a dance school with both a contemporary modern program as well as a ballet program. There is a design and production school that deals mostly with design and production within the stage world. These people go on to, be your stage managers, your lighting designers, your scenery techs, scene painters, wig and makeup, costumes. All that stuff is in design and production. And then, of course, we also have our music conservatory. I've had people from all 5 of these shows, all 5 of these schools, as it were, on the show, but it tend to lean towards drama. I started in DMP myself and ended up in the drama school. And so you'll notice a lot of the interviews are from drama students because those are the people that I got to know the best, and frankly, they're the easiest to book. So today we're talking to one of my favorite drama students, Joshua Morgan. Joshua Morgan graduated from the drama school in 2009. He's an incredibly talented actor. And beyond that, I want to say that first, and you'll notice why when we get into the interview, but he's an actor. He's a damn good actor and one of my favorites at school for sure. I saw some wonderful performances from him while we were at school, but during his senior year, and we'll get into this, he started a theater company called No Rules Theater Company that was split between Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and Washington, D.C. And that company lasted for a while as, I believe, a nonprofit theater company living in two cities, unheard of pretty much. And he's gone on to act in a myriad of different projects, Ain't Too Proud to Beg. So many great things that he's done performance-wise. He was recently on Law and Order. We're going to talk about that at the very beginning here. But he also started a fascinating new company called Artist Strategy. And if you don't know about Artist Strategy, I encourage you to go look that up right away. He runs this company with another drama alum, Mike Labadia, and the two of them really work with actors and artists of all kinds. I'm a client myself, to consult and to help them build the business side of being an artist. Obviously, we're going to get into this, and I don't want to over-explain, but I want to give you some context to what we're about to talk about. Joshua is an incredibly intelligent guy, and you're going to know that right off the bat from listening to him talk. He's a really smart fella. And he really understands the disconnect that happens as artists emerge from school or training programs and jump into the world of being an actor. And they have all their training in acting, right, and performing, and their stage presence and their voice work and maybe their dance or their singing training or whatever. And they bring all these skills or their toolbox into New York or into LA. And no one really lays the groundwork for them of, okay, what are you doing about finances? How are you building your community? How are you doing all of the other things that are going to get you these jobs wherein you will perform your talents? So he's started Artist Strategy. And I have to say, as a client, and they're not paying me for this. In fact, I've paid them for their work. They are great at what they do. They have an excellent attitude, and they're working to destigmatize, in my opinion, these are my words, destigmatize the business side for artists, because as they often talk about, it seems like as artists, we have this hesitancy to treat it like a business. And when you're an actor, you are a business owner. You are your own business. And when you're a director, it's the same thing. And myself as a producer and director, I'm always balancing a million different things and spinning a bunch of different plates, doing podcasts for free and shit. And I want to make the most out of what I'm doing, not just so that people are consuming the work that I do and that I'm getting paid for the work that I do, but that I'm building this into a career that makes sense and has stability and has a little bit of structure to it. Joshua is great at this. I'm so pleased to bring you this conversation that we had just recently. And I want you to really take the time to listen to the way that Joshua articulates his journey. It's his first time on the show this season. We're going to have some people who are coming back for a second time, but it's his first time on the show, and we really dug into a lot of stuff that I was fascinated by. So please enjoy this interview with my good friend and talented fella, Mr. Joshua Morgan.
Got it. How are you?
I'm good. You look very handsome today.
Do I? It's just, I was just working with someone earlier. I think it's Zoom because I'm graying, lots of grays happening.
I love gray.
Well, I don't mind gray. I'm simply saying that I think like this Zoom, I actually don't like having auditions over this on my computer because I think I look much better on my computer. And I'm like,
you're worried you're going to show up and they're going to be like, Jesus, God, that's not who we hired.
That's quite literally what my worry is. I shot an episode of Law and Order not too long ago, and I actually forgot that it was airing a couple nights ago, and so people were tagging me in pictures, and I was like, not resharing any of those. No,
didn't like how it turned out.
Why did they have to shoot from down here? You just lift it up. At least hit me dead on. I don't need this. I mean, I'm 35 years old. I mean,
Do you think they were trying to tell a specific story or make you look a certain, was that a creative choice or?
I actually, for who I was
Are you a menacing character?
No, it was like this rat expert who was like a little dweebish.
Rat?
Rat. Yeah.
Like the animal,
rat.
You're an expert in rats?
Quite literally a rat expert. And one of my rats killed somebody, and that's why they were coming to get me, or to suss me out. And it was fun. I didn't watch it. I don't like to watch the things that I do, so I still haven't seen it. I just saw from the photos or quick clips. I'm like, oof, rough.
I want to talk about that, actually. I'm glad that you brought that up because I don't think I've ever talked to anybody about this at length. And not that we have to talk at length about it, but I'm curious because I have heard that for so long from so many people that are either comedians or actors. I don't hear it so much from musicians, I think, because it's very different. Maybe singers, but people generally, artists, they don't like to watch themselves. They find it like very uncomfortable to listen to their own voice or to watch their own performances. And I have always kept it quiet that I don't mind it at all. In fact, I'm sometimes very entertained by myself and I don't say it out loud because I'm worried someone's going to be like, what an egotistical, crazy narcissist that guy is, which we already kind of thought might be the case. So there's our fucking for sure.
Confirmed.
Yeah. Stamp him in the book. But I just don't, it's not even that I'm like, it's not like everything I do, I'm like, I can't wait to digest. And I certainly have done things, especially in comedy, that I'm like, I don't like that. I'm not a fan of the joke. But I've been doing podcasts for years. I edit all my own podcasts. I've been listening to myself forever. And I don't know. I don't find the like, it doesn't disturb me or like make me uncomfortable. What do you think it is in that, like for people that really makes it for you? Like when you say you don't like to watch yourself, what do you feel when you watch it and what kind of goes through your head?
So I'm sure it's going to be different for everybody.
Right.
And I'll preface by saying, Rob, that I actually think that, your ability to like watch it and maybe critique and then, or to lift up like, oh, that worked really well. That's probably very healthy and probably the thing to be able to do.
You think it's better?
I do. Okay.
Because I'll take the compliment.
I think there's an objectivity in it that that allows you to, in my opinion, I'm just to be able to sort of take a step back and to observe and to improve.
Right.
I will tell you what it is for me, and this is going to be maybe a little heady. I don't know.
Sure.
So I spend my entire life, planning, organizing, thinking, spending other people do this, Got
a lot of type A shit going on.
Right. The thing about acting for me is that I've left therapists who didn't understand this point because they always talk about your work. It is the one place in my world where it is my job to completely let go, to not be on top of things, to not get in my way, to not think, to monitor my emotions or my sensibilities or my thoughts. And therefore, it's A, very important to me, but B, when I do work, and I'm pausing because it's actually coming up. I don't like to pull back the curtain on my work, nor do I like to watch it, nor do I like to see other people to see me work. I just want to, if I could just be slotted into a scene, do my thing, and then go out and not have to talk about it, that'd be the best. And the idea of looking at my work feels like it becomes something analytical and that is sacred to me from a very personal standpoint of that's when I get to express myself freely. That's right. My truth. I don't even know if that makes sense, but it's my truth.
I think, you know what I think? I'm going to make it a little weird, but be patient with me because I think it makes sense. I feel like that's the same vibe as people who, I remember when the whole OnlyFans thing was popping off during the pandemic and it felt like everybody was doing an OnlyFans, whether it was like just a little bit of like, oh, look, a little cleave or like full on like making sex tapes and publishing them. And I remember that conversation was like in the air. And I remember hearing a lot of people be like, I would never ever want to watch myself do anything romantic or sexual at all in any way. I don't even want to see a photo. I don't even want to reflect it, because there's something, and I'm bringing this to what you said, which is like, I'm in that moment free of that judgment, because you're usually alone. There's usually no audience for your bedroom activities. And you're very much left to just be and do and react to what is going on with the person. And you're just there. And the idea of inviting in even a camera that would later present itself to you as a piece of material, let's be crass, it's like, it spoils the whole like spontaneity and the fun of just letting go and not worrying about what you look like or how you're being perceived, or are you doing it the right way, or, I feel like there's a connection there in, I love how you put that. And that hadn't even occurred to me yet, especially with you, because of course I know how much of a business oriented mind you have. I know how good you are at organizing and keeping things structured. And so to have that, almost like, even though it's like you're also your career, but it's also an outlet for you to not do that, like not fucking do that at all, and then let that just go. And then you don't have to later be like, let's do a play by play and see where Joshua wasn't following his fucking whatever. Like, fuck that. Just, I did it and I got the work, and they said I did a good enough job to give me my check. I'm out.
Do you know what I love about that comparison to OnlyFans, actually? Because here's the truth, right? Just like all of us, but I'll take myself, I'm incredibly messy. I'm emotional, sensitive, and not level-headed.
Really?
Well, in our cores, right? If we were to strip everything down to like who we are, what is that, Rob? It's a survival mechanism. That, even one could argue, persona or a sense of self or system structures. It's how I live. I mean, we can get into it if you want, but I mean, there's a lot of where it comes from in terms of my growing up as an only child and basically a single parent household. My mom was super young, and so there was a lot of things like survival tools for me. But at my core, no clothes, running naked, free throughout the world.
Right.
I'm pretty, I often say to artists that I work with, I'm as esoteric as they come. The rest of it just sort of came as a way to be like, how do I make sure I pay my phone bill on time? So I say all that because, to your OnlyFans point, it really is. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's right. That's me. That's me. And I can't look at that, because that is not who I am, quote unquote, 80% of the time.
Right. That's like the exception that proves the rule in a way.
I know, but it's kind of weird, right? Maybe there's something like, maybe I got to figure that out. I don't know. I reserve it for my work.
I'm not advocating that you start filming your sex. I'm just saying that there's a lot of ways to dissect kind of what we're doing. There's a lot of ways to get into it, man. There's a lot of ways to look at ourselves that way. That's fascinating. That's right. I think you're right. And I love what you said about it being survival and kind of coping mechanisms. Like, I kind of have the same experience where, I grew up kind of a semi-only child. I have a half sister who's like 10 years older than me, and she was in and out, just like not always around. So I spent years of time like as an only child, and then I would have a sibling again, and then it would go away. And I think, and I've talked to my wife about this, she's a social work therapist, and she's like, I don't think you recognize how chaotic your childhood was and how much that's affected everything about who you are. She's like, that's such a big part of it. Like, stability when you're a kid, even when it's mundane, that does something to you. And then having chaos where you're like always moving, or you're always in a new house, or someone's getting remarried, or blah, blah, blah. It changes not just your personality or your desires in life, but even more importantly, and I think this is what you're kind of getting at with your story, it changes your coping mechanisms with stress, failure, even success. Like, it changes the way you deal with those things, because you are always kind of filtering it through your earliest experiences with how adults are supposed to behave. And you watched them do their crazy shit. And then when you get to that point you're pre-programmed, you're ready to go in a certain way. And if that doesn't work, that's when you have to start tweaking. That's what we call coping mechanisms, and that's so interesting to hear that about your story. Like that's not the artist strategy kind of attitude of let's make a plan and let's get it all on a spreadsheet and figure out what we're doing here. That's not like, you didn't start there. Is that what you're saying?
That is, and actually, I'm glad that you're bringing this up. It is a good entry point into whatever the rest of what we're going to talk about, because
which I don't know yet. We'll see.
It's sort of structured a lot of who I became, because one, my mother was married multiple times. Two, and this is no joke what I'm about to say, we moved once or twice a year since as far as I can remember. No joke.
I'm close to that.
So, and to use the
like
word
25 bedrooms by the time I graduated high school, I think is the number I've been throwing out forever.
It's well, so my therapist often says, Joshua, you thrive in chaos.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And I'll tell you the real impetus for what artist strategy was, because it relates to this. I just moved to Winston-Salem to go to the School of the Arts, and I had a really bad tooth infection.
Okay.
And I had to go to the dentist, obviously. And I went, we didn't have health insurance. My mother at the time didn't have health insurance. I didn't have health insurance. And the doctor said, we have to take the tooth out. And I called my mother and I said, I have to take my tooth out. And she said, well, what would you like for me to do about it? And the thing is that she really wasn't being cruel. It was the circumstance. And at the time when I left, it was done with clothes, all that. We weren't, I was up to me at that point. Right. And there was a moment, I shit you not, Rob, I was standing in that dentist, probably on Stratford Road. Who knows what road it was on.
Right.
And I was like, if I am going to make this work, if I'm going to do this, I got to figure it out.
When you say do this, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but when you say I'm going to do this, what is do this for you in that sentence?
If I was going to build a sustainable career as an actor.
Got it.
I'm going to have to figure it out, because I knew it was a gut sense that if I did not start to think about it right then and there, how am I going to do this? It was going to go nowhere fast. And that, to your point, is the point about structure and systems and coping mechanisms, because that was such an impetus for me to begin to think well beyond my script.
Sure.
That was my impetus, but it ties in with that early childhood stuff that we're sort of talking about as protective layers of, and I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted because there is a squirrel that is trying to get into this basement. It is ramming itself up against the window. So I'm sorry if I keep looking over.
No, it's okay. He so desperately wants to be a part of the conversation. He's got his own trauma.
That's right. That's exactly right. So anyway, so it does tie together, and it does sort of come full circle for me. I actually will say, one of the things I talk about with Mike Labadia,
heard of him,
is as I've gotten older, though, it's funny, as I've done more of this kind of work, or even when I was remember I used to run No Rules Theater Company.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that. We can get to that in a bit.
Yeah, well, a lot of times, it's funny how I have often felt like people have not considered me an artist because of so much of this other stuff that I do. But
that's because you have to be so much louder about when you're starting your own business, which, and no disrespect, because I know you constantly say in artist strategy, being an actor is a business and you are running your own business. But when you're starting a structured multi-person business like No Rules Theater Company or like Artist Strategy, man, you got to fucking scream it. You have to be like, this is a thing and it exists now and we're doing it and please check it out and give it a shot.
Right.
Way more than you have to do as being an actor. I mean, obviously that's part of it. And you guys talk about branding and marketing and that's a thing. But I think we can agree that's not the same venture to participate. I mean, and so as a result, it's kind of, it makes perfect sense that people are like, oh, Joshua, the No Rules guy or the artist strategy guy, not the actor, just because you're not screaming. I was on Law and Order. You didn't even watch it.
Well, and no, though it's a very good point, and and this is the first time I'm actually real having a moment of realization for myself in regards to this. I if I'm just speaking very transparently,
Please.
I have often felt like my peers, my immediate peers, often will not consider me as a fellow creative, and therefore I've spent so much time looking to new um, groups, terrain for me to explore creatively, which often meant me dipping into a commercial pool, because where I had yet to sort of break into as a other creative or producer of sorts, sort of looking to be able to do my work, because even I would argue folks in my own class, leaving the school, and then I wasn't regarded as, oh, we'll ask Joshua to do X, Y, or Z. So not only have I had to
as far as like acting or performing goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And it's something that I've reflected on, and honestly it's hurt me over the years. And I've tried to understand what that was. Period.
I hear that. Yes, absolutely right. I think, dude, I say that all the time, and I so appreciate when I hear it from somebody else. I do. No, I use period all the time. And to kind of fill in the gaps for anyone listening has no idea what we just did. Gerald Friedman, who was our teacher at School of the Arts, and left right as I was finishing. I was his last directing class, and he used to start a sentence, and then he would kind of get to the middle of the sentence, realize he was done earlier than he thought he would be, and then just say the word period and then stop talking. And it is one
Joshua,
of my...
I need you to cross over to stage left, period.
Yeah. Because in his head, when he started, he was like, there's going to be a comma there.
Yeah.
And there's not. Yeah. And I love the honesty and the immediacy to just... one of the greatest speakers I've ever met, just like most articulate people. And one of his primary tools was just to bail in the middle of a sentence and be like, I'm done. I thought I had more, but I'm done. And that's where we're at. I think, to respond to that previous point, I love that. And I think there's a couple of things in that, I can speak to it a little bit. I mean, you're one of my immediate peers. We were at school together, and I wouldn't say that I always was like, Joshua's not an actor anymore. I never thought of it that way, but I think it does say something about, I think No Rules is part of it. I think it's a big part of it because, and I want to clear up the timeline here so that I don't mess it up. Okay, so I'll lay it out for everybody a little bit. And if I get anything wrong here, please let me know. But No Rules Theater Company was a theater company you started with Brian Suto, and a little bit with Matt Cowart, I believe, is pretty heavily involved.
Matt Cowart was a company member right away from the beginning.
He's directing a lot of the shows.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And this was kind of a joint company that existed between DC and Winston-Salem. Is that right?
The first ever dual city theater company, Winston-Salem and Washington, D.C. Yeah.
So what's the timeline on starting that as far as your graduation? Like, did you start it before you actually finished, or was it right after? Like, and that's maybe part of my point, but to answer that question.
Yeah, it was. Did you ever see we did a production of Hedwig and the Angry Inch that we did in Winston, and then we did it in D.C.
with Chris French.
Yeah,
I didn't get a chance to see it, but I was very aware of it happening for sure.
So Ann Cohn was also a founding member who was a performing arts management student at the School of the Arts. And
back when that program was a thing, I think they stopped doing it.
When that program was a thing, that's right. Now, Ann, by the way, she's amazing. And I'm surprised they stopped it because Ann's a great shining example of it. She went on to become the associate managing director at Shakespeare Theater Company, et cetera. But so as Ann, Brian, and I started, we were doing Manteo. Remember Manteo?
Yeah, in the summers. It was like a summer program. Right. You guys would go out to the beach and do plays and stuff with Matt Bullock.
Best gig.
Yeah. It was one of those things that was like heyday when you show up and people are like, oh man, it's cool you're here, but you kind of missed it. Because it ended right before our class, I think, was supposed to do it, or the one before us or something like that.
it was an incredible first, professional gig before you graduate.
Right.
So Anne was working on marketing then, and I had met Anne when we were doing Balm and Gilly with Laura Henry, which I can't remember if Brian was in. But anyway, Anne was like, we should do something. And I was like, well, I've always wanted to do Hedwig and the Angry Inch. My mother was obsessed with it growing up, and I sort of became obsessed with it. What's hilarious, and this kind of will lead into No Rules. Anne thought that Anne was talking about me playing Hedwig, and the whole time in my mind, I was talking about directing it. And we went through weeks of this, not even realizing what the other person was really talking about. And then we realized that I wanted to direct it. So we were like, okay, let's produce it. And the name No Rules came from Chris French's audition, were auditioning Hedwigs, and Chris was one of them. And he said, is it okay if I jump on the table? And I said, yeah, there's no rules. And that was sort of the impetus for the beginning of, okay, well, what's the vibe of our company? Okay, so at the time, because we wanted to couch it under something, and even though that wasn't No Rules at the time, very shortly thereafter, Colin Hovde, whom you may know of, he's
Rings a bell. I don't know that I know him.
Jeremy Skidmore years.
Sure.
Was in DC and said, you should bring the show to DC because we sold out in Winston. And we brought it to, so this was 2000, this was right my senior year-ish, right? This is the beginning 09? Of my senior year. Mm-hmm. And here's the 2008, 2009. That's
8, 9, yeah.
And here's the thing that I knew right at the beginning to really answer your question about when did it begin. Brian Suto and I both knew, because Brian was going to be pursuing just acting at the time, that that LA, New York was not going to eat us up. We were different types. And as a young actor, I saw the landscape. It was just not my vibe.
I don't know what, and I say this with all due respect.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have cast you and Brian at 22 as. I say that with I know men. Dude, I know your talent. I've seen you on stage. I know what you can do. I know the training you've had. And as a person who's cast things and directed and all that, I think of 22-year-old Brian and Joshua, and I couldn't agree with you more. Like, what do you do with them?
Do you remember? You probably don't even remember this. We actually did a scene together for our showcase that we wrote based on those Robin Flick characters, the Assembly Required guys that we created.
I fucking love Assembly Required so much. Have I ever talked to you about that?
I don't know, but I'm glad that you appreciate it.
I love that die-hard fan of the. Fucking forgot about that until right now. Oh my god. Okay, so pause on No Rules for 2 seconds and tell everybody what Assembly Required was.
Okay, so Assembly Required were these two guys, Rob and Flick, who were failed actors,
right?
Who now put on assemblies that people are required to see in order to essentially, do their nonsense. So they found that if we put on assemblies, we'll have an audience, and then they pretend to be. And it was everything. So we did. So the ones we filmed, we did Assembly Required. Everybody is something. Yes, it's the one about something, being fat. It wasn't just about being fat. It was like everybody is beautiful or something like that. I forget what it was. And the other
but it
one
essentially was like, it's okay to be heavy. Like it was.
It was like, yeah, we love this. Remember we had Teresa Pravat, who was
shaking her arm back.
Yeah. And then we had Stranger Danger, which was the preparing to do a Stranger Danger assembly, which ended up being our showcase scene, where, and I'll never forget this. So the whole scene. Oh, I'm gonna set this up right because there's a funny Gerald moment.
Is the Stranger Danger the one that you like pitched to Dale, the principal in The Office?
Yes. Good. I know this is so bad. Rob, poppers have destroyed my brain cells. I can't.
I have not thought about this in like 10 years.
Okay.
Me and Wiley Gorn used to quote Assembly Required all the time. we would do the get out like that. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. I forgot about that.
Dude, I'm telling you, I was a fan.
That was the one. We pitched it to Dale Gerard. It was that we were pitching it, and then we turned it into a scene where we were rehearsing Stranger Danger for. But I will say, we ended up doing 2 live shows in DC. We did Assembly Required Comedy A to Y, where they did a whole thing on comedy techniques, which involved also we got a breakable chair, and every show Brian would beat me up with this breakable chair. It got some pretty dark shit. And then we did Assembly Required, How to Write, Produce, and Stage a Musical, the musical. So they were literally just okay, but wait, why? Okay, but the real reason I'm saying
is
this,
fucking killer.
I know. Do you know there was a guy who was in it who died? Who was
is that right?
Audience plants. He died over the course of he didn't show up to one of the performances, and we.
I'm only laughing because your timing of we're having fun, and you're like, and by the way, I don't know if you read in the Times.
Darren Ellis, I remember his name. Oh my God, that was really scary. So we, to your very point, bro. Okay, let me tell the full story.
I'm sorry, I'm Stranger Danger.
No, me too. So we created Stranger Danger. We wrote a scene, and we were trying to find a button for it, because basically the Stranger Danger was Robin Flick. The whole setup was they're rehearsing for their assembly, and they're deciding who's going to be the little girl and who's going to be the pedophile rapist, who's going to steal the child. That's the whole joke.
You put the wigs on in the apartment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good memory, Rob.
I'm telling you, I was a fucking fan of the show. Okay. It was really good. If you told me today, hey, the whole DVD set is available online and it's $100, I would be like, here's $150.
Okay, don't say that. Let me take note.
Write it down.
No, there was something like the end that we were trying to find a button for, because at the end of it, they get into an argument. They're like Robin Flick are going back and forth. And then Brian's character, for some reason, ends up the argument by going, or it was my character that goes, I have AIDS. That was the stop the argument. And the button that we were playing around with, and I'll never forget, testing out for Gerald, was Brian's character going, full blown. That was literally the button of the joke. And Gerald was like, you can't say full blown age. Maybe we just say do you say half age? This was literally a conversation we were having about how to button our showcase scene, which should have also been the real sign that we were not going to be signed by any agents or managers.
Well, that's only because no one from UCB comes to showcase.
There you go. That's right. Actually, no joke. If
they had, I'm not even kidding. If we had more kind of connection to the comedy community, I think there's a bunch of different people who have come out of the school, at least since I was around it, that would have had a very different interaction after showcase. If people were coming up to UC, from UCB or Groundlings or something like that, and being like, we don't really have representation, but we'll put you in the level 2 class or some shit.
John Clavier,
who I love.
Do you know how good he is?
He's super funny. I've seen him do stand-up too. He's really good.
He played Romeo and Juliet, Matt Lauria, Ashley Morris. He played Mercutio.
Oh, of course.
It was so good. You know who else I was just thinking about? Sorry, no, we're really going down a whole rabbit hole.
No, it's fine. We're gonna get.
I want to see if you remember him, because I just saw Best Sitter the other day because we were in Winston.
Wonderful.
And I was trying to remember him because he flashed me I was a freshman, he was a senior. Jefferson, he was a wild dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Bells. I don't think I met him, but it was a little ahead of my time there.
My point is what a good point you're bringing up, that there are so many actors who left the school who probably could have been, picked up in many different directions if they were looking outside of the box, which, to bring it full circle, look, we did it. To bring it full circle, that was the point of No Rules, because even in our senior year, what was very clear was, how are we going to do this? And Anne, who started No Rules with us, she said, listen, I have an opportunity for a job in Washington, D.C. How do you feel about starting a theater company and taking it there? And we said, let's go for it. We took Hedwig there, and we did so in our senior year, we opened in 2009, officially No Rules Theater Company. And it wasn't actually until probably a year, 18 months later, when Winston was building the Haynes Brands, which was the
Right.
theater they have down there, that we were like, what if we started performing in both cities? Who knew why? I mean, what a crazy notion. I will say, Rob, I think running that organization, starting and running a not-for-profit, will remain the most difficult thing I've ever done. And I don't know if I'd ever do it again, because it was just to your point, you make a good point. You just have to shout from the mountaintops. You can't just create the company and be like, okay, here we go.
Expect people to show up. Exactly.
You got to shout.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to scream about it. And I think that, and again, I'm always coming back, man, to get back to the thing that you said about people's perception of you as an artist and as a creator.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I've been talking about a lot. I was just talking to my best buddy, Brandon Harris, the other day about this.
I know Brandon.
He's the best. I don't know if you know, we've been best friends since we were in like 5th grade.
I did not know that.
Yeah, we're lifelong friends. He's the reason I know about School of the Arts at all.
Really?
Yeah, he's the reason I went there. That's why we were roommates the whole time I lived there and everything. Well, until he left, graduated. Anyway, I was talking to him about this the other day. I remember sitting in one of those big like senior circles where we all like sit in a circle and talk about what's going to happen after we get out. It might've been after a manager or agent was in town talking to us, giving us feedback. And I think it was just Carl Forsman who was sitting in the circle. I don't remember there being like an agent or anything. And our class, somebody, not me, though it was one of those things of like, this is why we do this, because they're asking a question I very much want to know the answer to. Mm-hmm. And I still remember it to this day because it comes up constantly. One of the actors in the class was asking Carl, who, of course, at this point, Carl Forsman had just left New York. He had been running his own company there for like a decade or so. And so we were very anxious to be like, we love the classical training we've got, but you've been in the shit for real in the city. Tell us how it works. And they asked him like, well, I love to write and I like to direct. And I feel like acting is my main thing, but I can't help it. I want to do all of it. Like, how do I do all of it?
Right.
And it was some version of that question. And his response, man, it really like kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Not in a like I got mad at him, but I just got mad about like the world. And he was like, that's not impossible. You see it all the time. He's like, but it is 10 times harder than just picking one thing and trying really hard to be good at that one thing. And he's like, for 2 reasons. First of all, when you see, this is kind of a side thing, but he was like, when you see people who do that, and we'll draw it into a more modern context, when you see Reese Witherspoon producing her own series or Olivia Wilde get into directing or blah, 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 whoever's doing this stuff now, they a lot of times grew one career first. And then they were like, oh, now that I know all these people and I've built an entire network and my name is fucking money, now I'll start experimenting with these other things that I've been watching other people do for years and have thought I could do that. But when you're new and you're first starting and no one knows who the fuck you are and no one cares who the fuck you are, trying to sell them a hyphenate is so difficult. It's so hard because the industry inherently, and this is just business too, as I understand it. I don't know a lot of business outside my own, but they want you to just be one fucking thing. Just be one thing. And we know where to put you and we know where you go and we know what you do. And we can look at your track record at doing that one thing and it simplifies it for us. And when you're trying to do so many things at once, it ends up being one of those like jack of all trades, but master of none situations where you're getting great exposure, you're building skill sets and you're doing all these fun little things, but no one really knows where to put you or what you are or what you're doing. And I think when you were not even done with school and you're already directing shows that are happening downtown, you're starting a theater company that's in 2 cities, you're doing all this different stuff. The world, including your closest friends maybe, are like, oh, that's who Joshua wants to be now. He wants to be like a independent producer, director guy. That's fine. But I guess that's what he is and nothing else. They don't assume, I'm assuming he still wants to be an actor, or I know he plays the fucking banjo and still wants to do that or whatever. Like no one spends time in their head on that shit. They're just like, we want to put one fucking label underneath you and think of you that way and categorize you and move on, because there's a lot of people in this world.
I think it's
And
a really good point. I mean,
I struggle with it all the time. I'm a hyphenate. I try to do so many things, and it's hard to convince everybody like, no, I can do all of them.
Well, I see it all the time with artist strategy.
Of course.
It creates brand confusion, especially in saturated markets, which the arts is a huge saturated market. If you think about yourself for a second, you go to a store, you go to a website, you click on an Instagram, whatever. If it's not clear, if it's not, oh, I see that and I understand the value, you move on.
Right.
And so then, because we get a lot of actors who are like, I'm an actor, I'm a singer, I'm a writer, I'm a dog walker, I'm an improviser, I also make movies sometimes, and I can make the best pancake in town.
Right.
I don't buy it, because it also feels like overcompensation.
No one who walks dogs makes good pancakes. That's not real.
It's gross.
Yeah. Pick a lane, fella.
No, I think it's a very fair point. And I will say, actually, I think my fate in DC was a bit different, because simultaneously when we started my theater company there, I booked a play before I moved there. That was a big opportunity. And then right after that play, I was put in another play at Woolley that was a big opportunity. And I say that because I was stamped right away as, a legitimate new up and coming actor in the area. I will tell you, in New York, I'm one of the producers of this. It's called Little Girl Blue. It's the Nina Simone musical, and we just closed at New World Stages and hoping to go to Broadway. I don't publicize that. I don't publicize a lot of my producing or directing anymore because of what you're talking about. Because even though I have some strong foundation under me here as an actor, it's still tooth and nail. I still have to claw my way in to opportunities for many, many reasons. But one of them is kind of what you're talking about. Even artist strategy, Rob, if you look at my socials, you will not see me pumping artist strategy content out on my personal Instagram. Right. It's not because I'm not very proud of the work. It's because it's not something that I publicly, put flags all around me with and say, look, and I run this business stuff. Because, I had an interesting event. I'm not going to say who it is if in case they listen to this, but I was at the holiday party, the alumni event.
Okay.
And I had a weird exchange with a couple of people, and I called one of them who was one of my close friends. And I said, what was that? What was going on there? I've known you forever. What was that weird moment?
What was weird about it? I mean, I don't want to get you into a corner, but like what made you call somebody later and be like, that conversation we had the other day was XYZ? What was it? Did it felt like they were attacking you? It felt like they were judging, or was something, I'm assuming it's something kind of negative. Otherwise, why bring it up?
Yeah. I mean, it might have been different because we went to school together. What I'm about to say might have been different for you.
Okay.
But when I was in school and when I was organizing the senior cabaret or miscast or helping the fundraising for LA or even holding those auditions for Hedwig and doing this, I separated myself.
Okay.
Without meaning to. People, and I think sometimes people didn't, even when we were doing the 10-year reunion, even though I was planning it, we had to bring someone else in, and this is not to take away from the person who helped plan it with me, but to really be the face of it, because my class didn't. This is speaking generally. This is not for everybody in my class. So
no. I think we all know that when that happens. Yeah. But
in general, there's a sense of like, who the fuck is this? Almost like I'm like, not part of it. And so when I went to that, it was people in my class, and there was a group of us, and it just felt different, Rob. Like when you're in a group of people and you're just like, what's this weird vibe? Am I doing something? Why are they being almost fake?
It's like they're not breaking, they're doing that like Hollywood wall. They're not really talking to me.
Right. Exactly.
I know exactly what you mean.
Exactly.
And dude, I came from DNP and joined in the second year, and I was a director who wasn't yet a director, who then also was like directing the seniors from last year in Complete Works of Shakespeare. Like, bro, I was never a part of my fucking class ever. Like, I was there and we were in class and we were friends, but to this day, and I live in LA. They all almost all of them live in New York City. So I relate to you more than you know. Oh, big time. I was never really a part of it.
And one common misconception, not that I do pretty much wear my heart on my sleeve. So even going back to like, even when I'm organized and here's my structure that, like I said, outside of my creative work, I still am a pretty honest person, and I'm not going to bullshit anybody. And I try my best. And I say that because even in this situation, these are still my people. So one of the comments that came to me when I called this person, he said, well, you sort of do your own thing and you run artist strategy and it's hard to know, you're always talking about networking. And I was like, oh my God. Because Rob, I don't just talk about networking. We call it community cultivation because it's like, how do we build genuine relationships in this community in order to, that are best going to serve us. But the fact that I was being synonymized with this business that helps artists identify how they can build sustainable careers, as though my presence was somehow false or my energy was false or can be misconstrued, was bizarre to me. And
dude, I know exactly what you mean.
Please.
I really do. Like I ran a comedy club for 2 years in Austin, Texas. And I started off doing open mics in LA. I was always just a fan of comedy. Then I started doing it myself. I did open mics for a while. I started getting booked on things at really low levels. And then I moved to Austin, kind of half and half. I never really left LA, but point being, I started owning a club, and it changes who you are to everyone without your permission. And I think that that's part of what I'm hearing from you, which is like, you take on this new venture that was always in your wheelhouse in a way. It was always something that you had a proclivity to participate in. It was always interesting to you. But now, because you do that, you're now this person to all these people.
Right.
And no one asked you, and you're the same guy. You're the same guy you were. You just you're saying things out loud, or you run the Romo room. And so now it's like, every comic that I talk to, whether it's in LA or it's in Austin, I start actively telling people now I don't run it anymore. Cause I'm like, you can just talk to me. I can't book you. Like I can't. I take that out of your brain as part of talking to me. And not only that, halfway through running that club, dude, I assigned someone else to do all the bookings that weren't major headliners, like every local comedian, every feature act. I put it off on them because I got so fed up with people speaking to me differently that I was like, I don't book the club. Like, you can just talk to me, and it will not affect me. I don't care.
This was a big thing with no rules, as you could imagine.
I bet, dude. Because you had jobs to give when you were fucking 22 years old in 2 cities, one of which people really wanted to be in.
And I think even there, that parsed out some of my relationships when
you started it then.
And then people started to have to audition, and they wouldn't get a job. And then, that point of view of whatever that meant to someone.
Right.
Listen, I signed up for it. It's part of what comes along with it. I get it more now than I did then.
Yeah, but you don't think about it when you get into it. I didn't start the club and think like, oh, this is going to be great, how it's going to change everyone talking to me, or oh, well, I know that's going to be part of it. Like, you don't think about that shit. You're worried about building a comedy club or a theater company. You're worried about creating something sustainable, getting fucking thousands of dollars that don't end up on the street. Like, it's not part of your process until after, and you're at the fucking holiday party and you're like, oh shit, like, what did I do? I mean, I wouldn't change what I did, but fuck this. Like, this sucks.
That is totally it. You're not even thinking about it. And one thing
Why
that
would you?
one thing that I take pride in that I actually talk more about, and Michael, my boyfriend Calciano, Michael, we talk about this too. I'm really good at putting on two different hats, meaning like I can go into work mode, or I can take on the role of, oh, now I'm producing this, or now I'm directing this, or now I'm acting in this, or now I'm this person in this person's personal sphere just as their friend. And I've noticed that is more difficult for other people to do. That if they know me but I'm so used to it that I don't even think about it. And so, but for other people, if they weren't cast in a show that they auditioned, I'm like, well, that certainly doesn't change the dynamic of my relationship with this person.
It's almost like you moved twice a year growing up and you're ready to deal with change. It's almost like you're dealing with a bunch of one house living motherfuckers who don't know what it's like to pack their shit up before they're 18 years old. And they're like, I don't know how you just switch, bro. It's like, I had to, motherfucker.
Exactly.
I had no choice.
Exactly. I thrive in chaos. That's the name of my memoir. Thriving in Chaos.
100%. Did you go to a bunch of different schools when you were moving as a kid?
Yes.
Or did you?
Yes.
Yeah. So you know what it's like to be immediately in a new group of people, and you're a fucking weirdo. I say with respect, because so am I. You get to a new school. You're not a normal kid, and you got to figure out how to not like get your ass beat every day, make a friend. Like it's a skill set. And when you're fucking 8 and you didn't ask for this opportunity to learn the skill set, you're just pissed that you have to keep learning how to do it. But then you get to fucking 25, 30, 35, and you're like, that's probably pretty good that I learned how to do that when I was 8.
Yes. Yeah. You become really independent. And now I can step into any room and be like, okay, how do I navigate this? Here we go. Who do I got to meet? No, those are all very good points. And honestly, just talking about this with you, it's obviously stuff that I think about, but I also don't think I sometimes give enough consideration for others' perspectives, because I know no one means any harm by it. But sometimes I have found myself sort of a bit bitter about either how I'm treated or a lack of regard. I suppose to some extent, as though
you want the benefit of the doubt. Right? I find myself saying that to myself all the time. I'm like, just can't you trust that I'm real? I'm a good dude. Like you know me. Like, don't assume that because I started some company where I help other people get their shit together, that I'm like some new guy.
Right. Right. And also partially there, it's interesting too. This is a bit of a 180, but what's fascinating to me are the number of people who, because we do, you know, the way people come to work with us is we do these free consults. So we talk them through. The number of people who think we're trying to bullshit them sometimes.
What do you mean? Bullshit them about what? What would be the point of that?
Hello, thank you. That's my question.
No, I mean that sincerely. I'm not trying to be rhetorical and be like, well, that's dumb. I'm like, sincerely, what is the bullshit angle?
In this instance, it's, well, why has no one else done this? Why doesn't this celebrity have to do this? Why doesn't X, Y, or Z? Because so much of our work with Artist Strategy, at least, is our new concepts for so many people.
That's so cynical.
Oh my God, I know. But you know who's opened up my eyes the most to this is Mike Labadia. Which is why I'm so grateful for him, because it's not that I'm not plenty ironic or skeptical in my own way around certain things, but to me, so much of the principles of what that is are just so. Once you share them, it's 2 + 2 = 4 to me. Mm-hmm. And what Mike often will bring back to me is the other perspective of what people are seeing or feeling based off of his unique perspective, which I'm so grateful for, which often includes that person is going to feel sold by that. They're not going to buy into this because they want this. And it's really helpful for me because for years like in a vacuum, I'm like, what do you mean? It's so obvious to me. Why would anybody do something like that?
And why wouldn't you start by giving someone a chance and let them figure it out? And dude, people like you and me need the Mike Labadias of the world so bad to just kind of like
Give it to
hold
you
a
straight.
mirror up to. Yeah,
Yep.
it's crazy because you and I feel so kindred to you in this conversation, only because I know exactly what it's like to be offering something to a group or a community or even just one person and be like, hey, I worked hard to get this and I'm just giving it to you because
Right.
I kind of wish someone had given it to me. It may take a little of the luster out of it because you didn't earn it yourself and I'm handing it to you, but now you have it and you're going to be better off now that you have it and you're welcome. And I did it because I don't know, it's the fucking right thing to do. And the world, Joshua, as you know, I don't have to tell you, I'm more saying it for people who are listening to this, are like, why the fuck would you ever do that? Like, why?
Yeah.
Like, A, you should keep it
Yeah.
for yourself if it's diminishing and, you know, or B, like, why would you take time out of your life and your things you want to do to like help another person for free? What do you want? What are you up to? And it's like, it hurts a little bit, man. I'm not going to lie. And I don't know how you feel. And you say a little bitter. I'm going to say it's painful to me because I have countless times in my life tried to do that and gotten that cynicism back. And I'm like, man, like this is why people don't do it. Because when they do it, they get this response and they're like, I'll just quit. I'll just stop trying to help people if they're going to think I'm up to something every time. I'm just trying to help them out, lend them a hand.
Well, I want to take our school as an example for a moment here because, and I'll preface by saying that there are many people who have left the School of the Arts, who have gone on to do other things and are incredibly happy. And at the end of the day, that is the most important thing. If you're happy, live your life.
Yes. Agreed.
But there are many, many artists, great actors, great directors, just keeping on our program, who have graduated from the School of the Arts and never had an opportunity to share it because they were woefully ill-equipped to navigate whatever industry they were stepping into. And so I'm saying that because yes, there have been times when I say, you know what, I'm just going to keep all this for myself because it's so much work to have to educate honestly on what people need when we are so used to using luck and fantasy as our primary business propositions. And yet, again, you have your own set of people. I have mine. Sorry, there's something stuck in my throat. It's the devil trying to keep me from speaking the truth. There are so many people who leave the school, just our school, but schools all over the world, Rob, who have no idea what to do next. And all they've got is their talent, and it deserves to be shared, in my opinion, for the same reason why I shared what my art represents for me, and it has for so many years, you know, a need for my own expression to be able to like healthfully move throughout the world, to have this important outlet where I can sort of truly be myself and let that be okay. It kills me that there is not something else in place, as far as I can tell, that is in support of us being able to do this sustainably. And it's funny, I was just in Winston the other day, and I have conversations all the time with folks. Oh, well, you know, Southern Methodist has an arts entrepreneur program and Wake is doing this. And I call BS left and right, Rob, because just because is it okay if I go on one moment, a tangent here, the soapbox about this?
No, that would be unacceptable on this program. Please go ahead, Joshua.
There are lots of arts-based entrepreneur programs, ideas, concepts for people all over the world. This is not revelatory that people are going, oh, we have to think entrepreneurially. Sure. But what I'm here to posit is that it's not about an artist branding course. It's not about a foundational financial management course for creatives, or here's how none of that. I believe that at our core, the biggest issue that is missing that I have spent so long thinking about is structure, accountability based off of the tumultuous, chaotic lives that we live. How do we actually pick back up and keep going and hold ourselves accountable so that we can funnel all of these interesting concepts we might get into, so that we're essentially building our own business infrastructure unto which we can actually take concepts and keep going day to day, week to week. Because, I had a client this morning, Rob, who signed with a major management office that dropped her a month after signing her. And what do you do in that instance?
Right. No one teaches you how to deal with that.
I had a 57-year-old woman, 2 children, one of which was special needs. She had lost her husband, and then she found out that he had been molesting one of her kids. I know this is really dark, but I'm saying
it's okay. It's the truth.
Because she had also been financially decimated by this guy. And that is actually what Artist Strategy is for. How do you continue to move forth at it when you've got nothing left? It's not just about self-motivation. It quite literally is about, how do I build a structure so that even when this horrible shit happens or the great shit happens or whatever happens, we don't dip in and out, and we can put one foot in front of the other, and we can take all those great other interesting offerings that these random programs might offer us and have a funnel into which to put them so that we can continue to do this day by day so that we can be doing it in 20 to 30 years. And that is a key difference. But I feel sometimes, Rob, like I'm speaking to walls when I talk with
into the
people
wind
who push back. It's like they don't get it.
Yeah.
They don't get it.
Well, I remember talking to someone years ago, right after they graduated. I don't even remember who it was, and it wouldn't be worth mentioning because it's not the point. But they said something about the School of the Arts program. And I have to always preface by saying, anytime I talk about the school, which generally we don't do a lot on this show, ironically enough, is I'm mostly speaking from my experience and the people that I know in what can only be called the Friedman era of the drama school, the 20 years where he was in charge of it. Right. Carl Forsman took over my senior year, right as I was leaving. Gerald was still there as Dean Emeritus, still teaching me. So I kind of got a little bit of both, but then Carl was there for a few years. Now Scott's in charge. I have no idea what the drama school is up to these days. I don't stay close in contact with it, and even less so the other schools. But right after I graduated, someone who had come out of the drama program in the Friedman era was like, had a gripe about the training, which I thought was pretty legit, especially in this person's case. They were like, we always talk about how the school really breaks you down. It breaks you down. It breaks you down emotionally. It breaks you down a little bit physically. It breaks you down mentally. It just like is really taking apart all the pieces and tearing open the things you took for granted and all that. And they're like, there's tremendous value in that. First of all, it's hard to get kids, let's be honest, to commit and to truly do that, to get broken apart. That's a big ask for someone who's 18 years old.
Yeah, of course.
And there's obviously going to be struggles as they try to do it, but to get like 30 kids in each class to like break themselves apart, that's an amazing thing. And to be able to do it it takes such a skill set. They're like, but I don't feel like enough. I may be even being more generous than they were when they were talking to me. They're like, I don't feel like enough work and enough effort, enough talent is put into building them back up again. It's almost like at the bare minimum, they tear you apart and then they throw all these tools on the ground that you barely know how to use. And they're like, well, put yourself back together, kids. See ya. And then a lot of kids walk out of school. They do their showcase. They're still not together. They're not put back together yet at all. Then they get dropped in the middle of fucking Park Slope or Upper West Side of Manhattan. And they're like, guess I'll just go to auditions, even though I'm still not fucking back together yet at all. Like, I don't know what's happening in my life. Like, I feel like a fucking mess. And I know I need therapy. And we always joked about how school was kind of like therapy, but it fucking isn't. And it's like, I feel that same thing is at play here in what you're talking about, in that and maybe it's time, maybe the program would need to be 6 years long in order to truly do it right. I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, I think that there's something there we work so hard in the artist community, which is the only one, again, that we can really, I think, effectively speak on, in saying the key to becoming better at what you do is breaking all of those little things in your head that are obstacles because you've taken the world for granted, or you've taken yourself for granted, or whatever. break that, try it differently, do it another way. But then we don't teach anybody, like once you're laying there bleeding on the floor, how to suture yourself back up and try again and get back to an emotionally stable place, get back to a place where you are mentally confident about how the world works. Because remember when you were 18 and yeah, you were a dumb kid, but you were like, I got it. There's power in that. Even if you're wrong, about I got it. Yeah. The confidence, right. the surety that you know how it all works. And when you were 18, you were wrong about a lot of that. But that confidence is what got you into this program. It's what made you walk into that audition that ended up getting you cast at school. Like, you got to get that back, or you're expected to walk into an audition at 22 and that's all been stripped away from you. You've been told you don't know anything. And you never get back on a thing. And the only thing you have to fucking stand on is, oh, I went to school of the arts. And everyone's like, yeah, don't care. Go ahead at the top. You're like,
I actually think you're bringing up something really huge here in an even bigger sense. Because this idea is massive unto itself, which is, are you okay? Are you emotionally and psychologically prepared to do this? The other thing is, I was watching an interview the other day with a business consultant for like knives, pots, who knows? A regular business. Exactly. And she was saying that where she begins with anybody is headspace and mindset. And to your point, Rob, that I think this is just so crucial. Not only did we go through a program that, prides itself or prided itself. Is that the word?
Prided? I think that's fine. It's not prouded. Can't be that. We'll go with prided until we get a dictionary and more people on the show.
That prided it itself on tearing us up, but then in order to build us back up, of course. And yet, great point. Were we actually built back up? But then if we were to take a more even surface level look at it, if we're considering ourselves all these walking businesses, let me just boil this down to something really simple and to kind of what you're saying. If you are not proud of what you're selling, if you don't believe in the thing that you're trying to get other people to come on board with, how the fuck can you expect anybody to go, you know what, I'm going to give you a chance? Because it's in this industry, it is too difficult on all levels, but just even take theater, which is probably the easiest entry point for most. There's no money. Anyway, people are nervous about what they're doing. I have a final call back for a show. I'm laughing because it's so ridiculous. I had to do a tape. It's this new musical, and they were doing a workshop. So I go in for the audition I got a call back in person. 45 minutes. They're working with me on two different parts. Then I get a final call back and they say, oh, and it's been downgraded to a 29-hour reading for $250. Rob, I'm laughing because I'm like, why the fuck are you making me come back in here to do another final callback for what is now a 29-hour reading? It's
what is a 29-hour reading?
It's so on.
What's that even mean?
On a play or a musical's pathway to assumedly Broadway, everyone's Broadway. Okay. They'll usually do, little informal readings. Then they'll put a little money into it for 29-hour reading, which could usually cost anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000. And then they'll do a full-on workshop, which can cost anywhere between $40,000, or I just finished a work session, which cost $1.3 million. That's a conversation for another fucking time. I can't believe they spend that much money on it. Which is
29 hours to do what?
29 hours to hear it out loud, and you present it to folks.
Okay.
But my real point is that the fact that I have a final callback in person for basically for a 29-hour reading,
which ends up taking how many days of your time?
5 days, minimal hours within each day.
Got it. Okay. So it's like a week's work, but part-time hours. Exactly. And you're getting paid $250 for the week.
$250. And my point is Johnny. And my point is that people are so even theater, you have to be confident. They're looking, you've got to be able to walk in and say, yes, we'll take a chance on you. So going back to the real point we're talking about here,
Right.
If these kids graduate and they're A, fucked up because they haven't been rebuilt, for your point, or B,
Right.
simply aren't in the headspace or mindset to say, look what I've got to offer. I'm proud of it, and you should be too. People are not, they're going to pick up on a lack of that, and it's not going to sell. It's not going to work out.
Right. I think there's also an inherent thing when you're 22, 23 years old, whenever you're going out into the professional climate, especially after going to a school where it was highly competitive to get into the first place. And as soon as you show up on that freshman day, watch everybody's monologues, you're like, oh shit, they're all better than me. And you're like, you get to the end of your time, you maybe feel like you did good. Maybe you even think you landed in the middle of the talent pool or whatever. And then you get out there and you're like, well, I don't want to be too like arrogant, because we hear a lot about like, oh, North Carolina School of the Attitude, like, oh, they talk a lot of shit about how arrogant everybody is. So then you hear that before you even get out there, and you get that mixed up, confidence and arrogance. And it's hard to navigate when you're brand new and no one's talked to you about that. No one said like, there's a difference between walking into a room, knowing that you have value, knowing what that value is, leave it on the table, leave it on the floor, and then just walk out and go to the fucking next one, as opposed to being like, you guys are lucky to have me here. This is not the fucking same thing. And it's a problem that I encounter as a slight tangent in to sidestep acting a second, working in production for TV shows, which is what I've been doing for like 6 years.
Right.
There's a constant back and forth. And I know for a fact, because I used to work at Viacom, so I know a little bit about the corporate life too. It happens there even more, I think, than maybe happens on production on sets, but I bet it's about the same. And it's not really a problem that I think actors deal with as much, which is you're hired to do a job, right? Specific role. So we're going to ask you to do these things. We're going to pay you this much money to do it. Time comes, we're working on the project, we're working on the movie, we're working on the TV show. More work needs to be done. We didn't hire enough people to do it. Let's be honest. They never tell you that, but that's the truth. Then they start asking the people they did hire to take on more than they were assigned in the first place. Of course. Without giving them more money, without changing a title, without having a conversation about it. They're just like, could you go ahead and take care of that? Or maybe it's even like, I was told I'm going to work 8 hours a day, and yet I'm getting emails at midnight, and it feels like I'm supposed to respond to those emails, even though it's fucking midnight. The next day at 10 a.m., someone's like, I sent you an email last night. Did you not get it? And it's like, no, I did get it, but I was not working for you at the time because it was fucking midnight. And I work constantly with people who are like, I don't want to get myself in any trouble here, but this is very important to me. They would almost rather organize and unionize and have little meetings behind everybody's back than just fucking say no. When they ask you, do what I just did. No, I didn't answer your email. It was 1:00 in the morning, man. Am I answering 1:00 in the morning emails now? Because we need to have a new conversation about how much I get paid and what my job title is and what the fuck we're doing here. Because when I sat in that interview and you talked about the job, and I talked about the job, and we talked about the job together, no one fucking said anything about, by the way, you're going to have to answer 1:00 in the morning emails. No one said that.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do it. Get someone else who's going to do it or change the situation with me. But they don't do that. They just say yes. They're like, I'm sorry I didn't answer the late email. I'll start doing it. And then they go meet with their other friends who work at the place and go, this place is fucking bullshit. And our boss sucks. And he's always making us do extra shit. And we're overworked and we're underpaid. And all of these conversations that I feel like if you had that confidence about your value, you would just say no and be like, oh, I'm sorry. And you can do it cordially. I'm being crass for fun, but like, you can be like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize my role included these things. Can we just talk about what that means? And is there going to be additional compensation? If there's not, this may not be for me. You might want to find someone else, because more often than not, in my experience, when you have that conversation, they just get someone else, they hire someone else, they'd be like, all right, it's fine. It's almost like a negotiation tactic. They want to see if you'll do it for free. And then when you don't do it for free, they just don't make you do it. And then you get to keep working there. I've never been fired because I had that conversation. And it feels like the same thing in the audition room, is it not? Like, just know your value.
Interesting. See, I was gonna, yes. Well, confidence and arrogance. That's partially why we're talking about that. I think there is general to that point. Yes, absolutely, there's a big difference. Honestly, just sharing openly, this is something that I always check in with because I do not view myself as an arrogant person, and but I am a very confident person, and I will say sometimes I think when I talk to my reps, agents or manager, I just assume there's a bit of a cone of silence. I'm like, well, let's just be real here. But then sometimes I have to check myself. I'm like, how did that just sound coming out of my mouth? Was that confident or did I sound like a dick?
Right. It's a balance. You gotta manage the balance. I'm not gonna pretend it's binary.
Two things. One side note about the recent graduates from the University of North Carolina School of the Arts. Stunned by their confidence. Stunned. I'm not sure
like recent.
There was a kid who was a lead in this work session I just did. And first day we were going around meeting everybody, and he looked familiar to me, and he's such a sweetheart. His name's DeAndre Sevon, Sevon. I forget how you say his last name.
That's pretty cool.
He is a pro. I mean, this kid, day one, was a pro. And then that Lana, what I was telling you about, Ainsley Seeger is now a lead of it. She just graduated, a pro. I'm simply saying it because there's a confidence level that they have.
Great.
An ease with their work, and they're kind. And I've just been so impressed. And I think it might be the Gen Z thing a little bit, where
it also might be the people in the class who like got cast because they have that. And you haven't maybe met the people who didn't build that skill set.
Very fair.
Because I feel like there are people who have come out of I mean, we know people who have that, who didn't get taught it at school. It didn't get built into them necessarily inherently, but they figured it out, or they had a little bit of it built into them before they got there. And those people often end up successful. But to your point, it might be the Gen Z thing.
I was just so taken with like their ability to look people in the eye and to do their job and to show up and to be easygoing and positive. And those were just two in the last couple of months where I'm like, wow, good on you, Scott. Honestly, because Convo at the time,
credit's due there.
Scott and I've had some tense moments so far, and sometimes I don't always give them the benefit of the doubt. So I was happy to see that those the kids are happy and they're doing good work. But I want to underline another point you were bringing up, which is not specific to arrogance or confidence, and it's this communication thing. I don't know about you, but one of the things that I am struggling the most with, and I'm trying to figure out ways to communicate and to deal with it, is between Instagram and emails and texts and phone calls and the 90,000 platforms that we're on, is the Apple Watch and I'm constantly on Do Not Disturb because I do not want people to assume that I'm going to respond back to them like this. And yet we live in a day and age where if you don't respond back to one of these things very quickly, people somehow view like you've ignored them, and whereas for me, if I picked up my phone and responded to a text message or an email every time it came through, I would get literally nothing done. B, I'd be able to focus on nothing. C, it seems totally implausible to me. I'm just using your moment about talking about your work in production, and getting that email at 1 a.m. as a moment to talk about this, because it seems like no one's really having that combo either about how fucked up our communication styles are and the expectation for immediate response. Do you have any thoughts on this?
I do. And I don't deal with it that way. Like I don't have that problem, and I'll tell you why. And no, I will. It's unfortunately, it's more simple than I think a lot of people make it. And I think it's risky to go about it the way that I do.
Okay.
But it works for me, which is I first of all, the hypothetical situation I brought up before of getting the 1 a.m. email and then getting a comment in the morning from whoever sent it being like, I didn't hear
Yes.
anything. I don't know how many times that's ever even really happened to me. And the reason why is because I make it abundantly clear in every relationship I have. I mean, my fucking wife knows that I'm like this. I don't respond right away to anything ever. I see it. And I'll even tell my wife, I'll be like, oh, wow, our friend wants to hang out on Wednesday. And she's like, all right, are we free on Wednesday? And I'm like, yeah. And I just put my phone back down. And she's like, are you going to answer him? I was like, yeah, I'm not right now. Like, and I'm not intentionally like blowing people off. I'm not ignoring people, but I make it a regular habit. And anybody who's listening to me who knows me is going to be like, this is not fucking news. I make it a regular habit to make it clear to people, you're not going to hear from me right away. You're just not. You treat it all like a fucking voicemail answering machine from the 90s. Leave your message. When I get home, you'll get a response. That might be later today. It might be tomorrow morning. Now, here's the difference. Obviously, if I get a text from my boss at work who's like, we need to get this done and there's urgency to it, I'll respond. I'll respond right away. I'll be like, oh yeah, you got it. No problem. Hey man, are you free this weekend? I'll give that like 2 or 3 hours, 5 hours maybe. Then I'll get back to it. I don't want to wait 2 days because I don't want that opportunity or that plan to like disappear because they fucking asked me 2 days ago, hey man, I'm not free anymore. Something came up. So I mitigate a little bit each one, and based on its urgency, I try to give it as much time as I can while still being respectful of their time because they are trying to talk to me. And I want to respect that. But I don't want to set the precedent that I am on tap. I'm fucking not. I'm not. Like, I'm not emotionally. Sometimes I'm mentally like, I just don't want to think about this right now. And there's no reason I have to think about it in the next 30 minutes. So I'm just going to finish what I'm doing, ignore that for now. And I've gotten pretty good over time of, even if this is kind of stupid, but even if I clear the notification on my phone, it doesn't really get cleared in my brain. Like I go swipe away, deal with that later. And it's not got the little red one on it or whatever anymore. But in my brain, it does. I'm pretty good at being like, oh, fuck, I never got back to so-and-so. And it's only been about 8 hours. I'll hit them up and tell them what's going on. But to me, it's very much about, because I think we have an inherent thing. And I used to have a bigger problem with this when I was younger, especially when I first graduated and I was working at Comedy Central and I was working at the corporate office. And it felt like when I first started in the first like 3 months, I was like, if I have to answer everything right away. And if someone texts me, I got to answer it. If someone emails me, I got to answer it. And it's like, I got so many things boiling. The best way to deal with it is deal with it immediately. And then over time, I remember talking to the guy who had my job before me, who got promoted right above me. So it's really great. I always had like a little mentor, like sitting at the next desk who had my job. And I was like, man, I don't know what to do. I got all of this stuff. Like I got too many things going on and I don't know what to do first. He was like, there's only one way to sort tasks, period. And I was like, what is it? He's like, urgency. That's it. That's all that matters. Because does it need to be done right now? Does it need to be thought about right now? Or can you do it tomorrow because you have 5 things that are due today? And I would be like, it seems so simple. But to me, it's always about that. It's always about urgency. And if I don't need to give an urgent response, even if I'm sitting here, not, right now I'm talking to you and we're doing a podcast, so I'm not talking to anybody. But if I was just sitting here editing something on my computer, but I'm in the zone editing something in a video and someone texts me, hey man, are you free for dinner on the 15th of October? Today's the 2nd. I'm going to be like, I'm going to finish my project. I'll text him back. I got fucking 13 days before that's even going to be a thing. And if that person is going to cancel on me because I didn't get back in the first 45 minutes of their question, I lost. Okay.
I mean,
so rarely have I lost anything because of this attitude.
I love your confidence in your ability to do that, because I think partially, and disagree with me if you will, if you do, I guess I sense an expectation. Do you think
Yeah,
I'm
you're
wrong about
making that up. I think you're making that up 100%.
Interesting.
I don't know the people you know, and I don't know if that's true, but I know when I say I do this across the board, I mean it. I do it at work. I do it on side projects. I do it with my wife. I do it with my friends. And it's because I'm building an expectation within them of Rob's not going to get back to you right away. He just doesn't do that. He never has. I've known him for fucking 15 years. He's never texted me back right away. And if he does text me back right away, it's because he's willing in this moment to have that conversation right now. And that's where he's at. Another thing that I do that's really important to me, like at work, is I don't like paperwork. I'm not good at the type A shit. I'm way more of a creative person. Obviously, I have to do a lot in producing that's very logistical and all that kind of stuff. I have a relationship with my assistant, who's really my associate producer, but I call him my assistant because that's really our relationship. Well, he is. And he's not my personal assistant.
I thought it was like a weird power grab thing. He's my associate, but I like to refer to him as my assistant.
Well, because the truth is, what I tell him all the time is like, we work in reality TV and our titles are field producer and associate producer. But especially in TV more than anywhere else, producer means fucking everything. There's a line producer, a consulting producer, a writing producer, everyone's fucking called producer. What I told him when we started together, he's my second associate I've had on this show that I work on, is I was like, look, here's how I run my show when I'm in charge for the day. I'm the director, you're the first AD. I'm the director, you're the stage manager. Pick your fucking medium, but that's our relationship. I'm here to make sure the creative shit gets done the way it's supposed to. And sure, overall, the whole thing is my responsibility. Your job is to support me in that by making sure that all of the logistical stuff, the schedules, the emails, the detail, a lot of other producers, they approve their call sheet the night before. I'm like, you do that. I know how to approve a call sheet. I've been doing it forever. I know how to look at one and make sure it's all right. But you're fucking 23 years old. You need to learn and get the practice on how to approve a call sheet. So you do that. And if there's a problem later, I will take the blame because I'm the one who assigned you to the task. So it's still my responsibility, but also keep that in mind when you approve the fucking call sheet. Don't get us in trouble. Do it right. And I create a dynamic as well at work where people generally know if they really need a response from me about something that happened on a shoot, just ask him. You're going to get an answer quicker because he handles stuff like that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, it sounds like part of what you do, which is a skill, is communicate. You just and manage expectations. And those things go hand in hand, communicating and managing expectations.
Right.
When can you expect a text message back from me? What do I expect your job to be? Those are unique skills, Rob. Even if they seem obvious, they're not. They're not always available to everybody.
It's fucking crazy to me. And that's the kind of shit I try to give people for free. And they're like, what are you up to, you fucking salesman? What are you trying to do? I'm like, trying to help.
Back to the point.
Because one day you're going to be on my set and I want you to know how to do things. That's why. That's the only reason, because we all work in the same world. And there's actually only so many people making film and television and theater in this country. And I want more people to know how to do what I consider to be the most basic things. And there's plenty of things I'm not good at. I'm not perfect at my job. I make mistakes all the time. But there are a few things, and communication and managing expectations, you're absolutely right. It's fucking paramount. Dude, to me, it
solves so many problems
before they ever even happen.
And the managing expectations part is a big piece of that. If someone knows what to expect you, so it can avoid disappointment on both ends, if you know exactly, is when you don't communicate and you don't manage expectations, that people can start to feel funny and start to feel distrusting. Or I'm going to do a complete 180 here because I've been meaning to ask you this for 30 minutes.
Go ahead. While I was talking for that long.
No. This is random.
Sure.
Do you sing?
Oh, yeah, a little.
because you sound like you would have a beautiful tenor pop rock probably vibe. Am I right or wrong about
sweet. That is so sweet. I don't know if that's accurate. I'll say this about my history with singing, and is a short
Okay.
one. First time I ever sang in front of people, other than like elementary choir or some bullshit, was I was a sophomore in high school, and there were like 2 community theaters in my town, and one of them was doing Arcadia by Tom Stoppard, and one of them was doing Guys and Dolls Jr. with kids. They were happening at the exact same time. Everyone in town knew that me and Brandon Harris were both about the right age to be in them. But as you know, and anyone listening to this who's a huge theater dork knows, there is one part in Arcadia for a teenager.
That's right.
There's not, there's 2 if you're for female. There's a female teenager. But there's one male teen in Arcadia who is silent for almost the entire play and is like traumatized silent. They think he's autistic. And at the very end, you get one scene where you kind of get to really act as we thought of it at the time. And then there was the musical Guys and Dolls, which was a junior version. So there were like 9 parts that we could have played, you know? And it's all men. There's like 2 chicks in the whole play. And so the expectation was in the community, Brandon had already been singing and stuff. He wasn't really a big singer, but he had been in musical stuff. I had never done a musical in my life. We had talked about it, and the auditions were like one night after the other, I think. And he was going to do Guys and Dolls, and I was going to do Arcadia. And we were both going to audition for it and assume that we would get the parts, because that's kind of where we were in our communities. And the auditions for Guys and Dolls happened first, and I got a call the next day that was like, or is Brandon coming? Like, we were trying to call him. We couldn't get a hold of him. We thought he was coming last night. And I was like, I don't know. I thought he was going to do that, and I was going to audition for Arcadia. I called Brandon. I guess there was some miscommunication, or he changed his mind, or whatever the fuck, because he's like, oh no, man, I'm doing Arcadia audition tomorrow. And I don't know. And I was like, okay. And so I called back the person who called me about Guys and Dolls. And I said, I guess I can do Guys and Dolls. Like, I don't really sing, or at least I don't think I can. And I went to the musical director's house, and they like got at the piano and were like, can you just try this scale for me? To this day, I have not forgotten the look on their face, which inspired me to keep singing forever. And this is true. They start doing the scales, and it's just like little vocalises, and he keeps going up. And he was like, oh, okay, so you kind of sound like a baritone, like maybe a high baritone. And he keeps going, and he just keeps going.
Bitch. Exactly.
And he's like, and his face keeps going like,
I can hear it in your voice.
Oh shit. Can you try this? And then I would do it with no confidence.
Nicely. I knew
and I was
it.
Fat. And I was fat. So it's perfect. Nicely's almost always fat.
Are you kidding me? Nicely is such a great. I love Nicely, Benny South Street. Those are 2 of my favorite parts.
I would play Nicely Johnson anytime for the rest of my life. I'd play it at 80. I'd play it at 50. If they asked me to do it next year, I would do it again. I'd need to get back in the shop and get it going again. But
are you an actor? Are you still acting?
I've told my wife, I think of myself in hibernation on acting. I fucking love it so much. And I really, really, man, I love to perform. I do. But I have made it so much my work to do other things. And even before I was at School of the Arts, I mean, I started at School of the Arts in the lighting design program, and then went to directing. And so, but I took the second year of acting, and I had such a fucking blast. And then in, third and fourth year acting stuff, I had such a good time, and I love doing stand up. But for me, the thing that drove me away, I remember like leaving high school, Brandon and I talked about this. I was like, I don't want to be an actor. And he was like, I thought that was like our thing. And I was like, yeah, but dude, I don't think I have it in me to make my life. I think the way I put it then was like walking into rooms, begging people for a job every day, only for them to mostly say no.
Right.
I just don't think I have the capacity for it. Like, I think it would just hurt me. And after a while I would be like, broke and sad. And I don't want to do both those things when I have all these other skill sets that seem to be well utilized. I've done way more lighting design at this point than I've done acting even. So for me, it's always been a thing, but I constantly watch like movies and TV with my wife and I'm like, man, I want to play a part like this so bad. Like it's in me. It's still in me. And I have this like thing that I'm like, I don't know when, and I don't know what's going to happen. That's going to be like, now I'm going to start doing it. And I'm going to fucking really put myself back into doing it. But I also think I have the kind of personality and character that I haven't totally grown into yet. Cause I also still look like 26 years old. And so unless I'm going to be one of those like CW style actors where they're 30, but they're playing a 19-year-old or whatever. Like, I don't feel like I'm still growing into what is going to be the best version of me in something, I feel like. So it's on the list.
But here's the thing about us character actors. I signed with New Agents not too long ago. And one of the things I clocked it. What my new agent said was like, oh, we love character actors. Character actors never go out of style. And I sort of loved it because I was like, hey, that's so true. It's so true. We really don't. Meaning, and as you get older, like if in 5 years, 10 years, you're like, I want to do this, there will be room for you. Because like you said, you can play nicely now. You can play nicely in 40 years. It just works. It doesn't matter. Character actors, I'm finding I'm getting more traction now than ever before. It's kind of the very first thing we said. What would you have put me in 2009?
Right.
It's like hard to gauge. It's like, who the hell knows?
It would have to be
very
so specific. Exactly. Yeah. It would have to be. Yeah.
Unless it's DC, because DC, I will say, which was a smaller market at the time, there was just room. It was an LA, New York thing. LA and New York are just so saturated that there wasn't going to be room for my magic.
It's the same way with stand-up.
For my magic. That makes sense.
LA and New York is like, good luck. It's not a bad place to get better, but it's not a great place to get noticed.
Yeah. I know what have we stepped into? I'm sorry that I feel like I hijacked so much of our conversation.
You're the guest on my show. You're allowed to contribute to what we talk about.
Listen, I've been guest on other shows where that's not the case.
Not everyone does things the same way. That's okay. I've very much that's right. I've had the same attitude about this show since I started it. And I've done several other shows that are different formats, but this one has always been the same, which is, and that's why I call it At the Elephants, is like when you sit down at the Elephants with your friends and start talking about what's going on and what you want to do and who you are and all that kind of shit. There's no plan. There's no written questions. There's no like, now I'm going to not talk this whole time and just ask you questions and make sure you're generating or whatever. This is just a conversation, man. And it's supposed to be exactly that. I will say we're almost out of time. This went super long, but I've had a fucking blast. So I didn't want to cut it off. I always ask one standard question and I didn't ask you.
Okay.
We got an hour and a half into the conversation and I didn't ask my one stock question. We kind of talked about it, but I didn't ask you the question, which is, where are you from?
I was born in Bournemouth, England. But
Wait, where?
In Bournemouth, England. It's like 30 minutes south of London.
I didn't know you were born in England, dude. Do you have dual citizenship?
I do, but most people don't know that, because why would they know that? I obviously,
because I hadn't asked you yet on this show.
Yeah, that's right. No, but I don't really identify with that. I was really raised in LA and New Jersey. So those were the sort of the two.
What were the time periods of that as far as your life? Like age what to what in each one? When did you move when did you leave England? You're like baby?
When I was 3 years old. Yeah.
Toddler. Got it.
Yeah.
And then to LA?
Exactly. And then I was pretty much in LA until I was about 12 or 13, and then went to New Jersey.
That's a weird time to totally change coasts, dude. I mean,
Well, once or twice a year. We always popping around.
Did you move around LA a lot, or were you in the same area?
No, we were in Fullerton, North Hollywood, Mar Vista, Santa Monica.
That is very different.
Yeah. Well, that's my mother. I mean, still to this day, my mother still moves once or twice a year.
It's got to shake it up. She's like a game of Boggle, man. She's like, we got to just shake it up and let it settle.
Yeah, we don't have enough time to psychoanalyze that situation, but it's still happening. She's still going.
My parents, people used to ask me if my parents were in the military, and I used to tell people, no, they're just clinically indecisive.
Yeah, I was going to say, I assumed it was because you were an army brat, but it was more has to do with just them being them.
My dad's the only one in his family that wasn't in the military. It would make all the sense for me to be in it. My dad was just like the one guy who went into like business and fixing cars is what my entire family does for a living. But that industry actually, and a lot of people don't know this, not that it's interesting, but it's it's a sales job. It's not even selling cars, but fixing cars for the longest time. Less now, but it used to be more of a sales job because you're trying to sell people on dropping their car off at your body shop. And you get a percentage. Your pay is scaled to the repair. So $100,000 repair on a car, it's crazy. A $20,000 repair on a car versus a $5,000 repair is going to pay you, the service writer, the estimator, differently. And so when you're in sales, and anyone who's in sales knows this, you often move around a lot because you hear of another place giving you a better deal. And so you're like, oh, we pay 4% of each repair. Or we pay 3.5 plus a bonus, or we do this or that, or this shop kind of dried up and they're just not fixing as many cars as they used to. And I got a call from Jimmy down the street. He says he's doing mad sales and all of this. So I'm going to go over there where the money is. And it's very much following the money. It was also relationships. Like my parents were together, then they split up. Then they got back together. Then they divorced. Then my mom got remarried. My dad was with a woman for a while that he almost married, but didn't. Then we moved out of her house. It was like, there was always a reason that was very much just life, mostly work and family though, related reasons. And there was always like, and this is, I think, also got programmed into me. This is why I'm always like, maybe we could be doing this better, or maybe we should mix this up, or maybe there's a new way of doing it, because my parents were constantly, we would be living in a house where the rent was XYZ. And they were like, what we'll do is we'll move to this other house where the rent's a little cheaper, the place is a little smaller, and we'll save. And then we'll buy this other house. Like, they were always making a plan. And then 5 years into it, that plan would, or not even 2 years into it, maybe that plan would like fall apart. And they'd be like, this didn't really work the way we thought it would. This house sucks. So the one we're going to buy didn't get built, or whatever. And then, so we would just move somewhere else again. It was always something else. Never the same reason.
It actually somehow makes that, I do hear the sense in it. I will say it doesn't feel completely nonsensical for their world, you know? So there's something to be said for that. It didn't feel
crazy at the time. It was a pain in the ass. And I got to spend like 6 or 7 years in the same school district, even though we were moving around a lot. So I went to 3 high schools, but I only went to 1 middle school. And I went to an elementary school that went into that one. And then my first high school was like, that was kind of my middle section where I got to kind of stay in the same place. I was with Brandon Harris in those schools. But then like, in the middle of high school, my mom was like, we're moving to Manhattan. And I was like, okay. And so I lived in New York City for all of junior year of high school, and like went to a performing arts high school. And then we got towards the end of junior year and mom was like, we're going back to Texas. I was like, okay, yes, we'll go back. And I went to a different high school than I went to the first time. And so,
this is why you're a good social person, though. This is why you're a good social person, really, because but I'm serious. Like that's a skill unto itself to be like, okay, like you said, okay, and then you got to go build new relationships, and and that takes its own sense of honestly courage. So
I appreciate that. It lent itself well to theater, I think, is why I was attracted to it, because, and it's why I do so much better on TV shows that are not trying to last forever. You know, I've never worked on like a sitcom that every year you're like, I hope we don't fucking get canceled. I've only ever worked on things that are either one-off or kind of like guaranteed not to go anywhere to a degree, because I'm fine with the play ending. I've never been super sad about the play ending. I'm not one of those guys. At one point, usually about 2/3 of the way through the process, I start to get like, are we still doing this? Then we open it. I get excited again for a little while. And then depending on how long the run is, third week of the run, depending on how long it is, I'm like, I gotta go. I'm bored. We've been doing this. I talked to my buddy Dave Brown about playing fucking
Dave?
Elder Price on Book of Mormon 8 days a week for fucking, I don't know, 30 years or whatever he did that job. I was like, I can't. I would fucking blow my brains out, dude. And I say that with so much respect because it's so cool that you got that. I'm so happy for you. I bet you fucking loved it and crushed it. But I'd play that part 8 days a week for a month, 1 month, and I would be like,
done.
I can't.
Be done.
I could do a few. I think I could play a role on a series that shot like 3 months of the year, and every year we come back with a new season, a new story. We try to, do a thing. But could I produce a show like that or direct it? I don't know.
Like you could
I don't
act
know.
an American Horror Story.
That would be a great one, except for I'm not big on horror, but it would be fun to be on, for sure. That would be, I would love an anthology. I could work on that as a director or producer even, because I would be like, where and when are we now? That's a brand new fucking story. That's almost a new TV show every year, which I'd be on board with that. I love The Office, but I don't know if I could have worked on The Office unless I was acting.
I know exactly what you mean.
Especially since it's a
repetitive.
show about being bored at work. Jesus Christ. I can't. I'm too, I rearrange my furniture in my house like once a year just for fun. Cause I'm like, I can't do this shit anymore.
That's the moving. Your parents,
Yep.
our parents have rubbed off on us.
Pre-programmed, dude. Joshua, thank you so much for talking to me, man. This was like such a blast.
Please.
I had such a good time. And
Too.
is there anything you want to plug? I mean, go watch Joshua on Law and Order. He's not going to. If we,
I'm not going to. And if you do happen to watch it, just please commiserate with me. Why did they shoot from that low fucking
Why?
angle?
Do you have to do my boy dirty like that? Come on now.
It was an Australian director, and I think he thought it was funny because they were playing a dweeby character. I think he just liked the shot of like my gullet. Oh my god, you can even see it.
You wanted the
You can
waddle?
even see it from there. Rob, thank you for having me. I had a lot of fun. Thank you. Really.
It was
Nothing
great,
to plug.
man.